Dr. Evan Miyakawa. He is the one, you know who he is. He's the one that's helped break down so many different things when it comes to trends, stats, and analytics. And tell us what happened today with you.
This was an anticipated day for a long time. I finally got to walk for my PhD in statistics at Baylor. I haven't been back in Waco since 2020, so I've still been working on my dissertation remotely. I defended my dissertation back in January, but this is my first time back here since 2020, so it's been great to be back, to be in the Farrell Center and all that good stuff. So it's been a good day so far.
So you defended your dissertation like over Zoom?
Yes, that's correct, which was not the norm until COVID for sure.
Yeah.
So pre-COVID, you would have stayed here in Waco, you would have defended in person, but because I've been living in Indiana for the last couple of years, they were okay with me doing it, over video, so that worked out pretty nicely.
How's Waco looking compared to 2 years ago when you were here?
A lot has changed and a lot's the same, So it's I've only been here for 12 hours or something, but
drive around.
Still going.
Yeah.
I can always count on that. So
drive around the block and see all the construction. I mean, it's ridiculous right now. Like every single road in this town's under construction, basically.
I believe so. You look one way or the other, whether it's not just I-35, it's and that means there's a lot of money being spent.
Entire downtown is under construction right now. Yeah, it's nuts.
So for those who don't know, or for those like me who never were even thought of going to get my doctorate, when you say defend your dissertation, explain that for maybe somebody that doesn't know like me or others.
Sure. So in order to get your PhD, you have a certain number of credits that you have to get, just like an undergrad. And so I took about 3 years to finish all of my coursework. But then on top of that, I started doing some research with an advisor or two in my statistics department at Baylor. And you basically put together multiple chapters that form a thesis. That's your PhD dissertation. And then when you're done with all of that, you basically have a presentation where you defend your dissertation and basically present on some of your work that you've done. And then some committee members and audience members can challenge you with questions and stuff. And then they send you to your own private room, which in my case was just booting me off the Zoom call for a few minutes, and they deliberate, and then they tell you whether you passed or failed. So
is that an anxiety? Is that high anxiety, even if you know you aced whatever you had to do?
I do think so. I think I knew that I was going to be fine. They don't really put you in a position to defend if they don't think you're going to do well, but you still don't really feel 100% confident until they tell you that you're officially, have your doctorate. So
yeah, I think the worst thing would be we don't do this often, but you were about 75% in. You need to do a little bit more work. So we'll do this again in 6 months.
I've heard some horror stories.
Yeah.
I've heard some horror stories of people who have passed, but then also told that they had to correct something and it's taken them a year or year and a half to finish after that. So thankfully, everything was fine with mine.
You have some family in studio, 5 guests that are in studio, mom, dad, grandparents, grandmother and grandfather, and also your father-in-law. You want to we don't have a camera on all of them. There's an overview, but I don't think we can get all of them. But you want to introduce everybody that's here?
Yeah, so my mom and dad are over here. My grandparents who live in Alabama. My father-in-law, Keith, is here. My wife is also in town, but she's not able to be here right now. But I'm just glad they're here. When I graduated with my master's from Baylor back in 2018, I actually forgot to tell my parents that I was walking because I didn't think it was that big of a deal, and I thought I had told them and I hadn't, and they found out that I did it because they saw my father-in-law's Facebook post. So
wow.
I made sure to invite them this time, and they came.
Yeah, I bet that went over well.
Yeah, it was it's a joke that they keep
was that a
reminding me
phone call, awkward moment, or how did that go down?
I think they tried to. They were living overseas, so they weren't going to make it anyway. And I knew that I was going to be, here today in a couple years. But I think they tried to play it cool, but I know that they were a little bit upset that their own son didn't tell them that he was walking to get his master's degree. So I made sure to let them know way ahead of time.
So what'd you do this weekend, Evan? Oh, nothing. No. Walked, went to Outback. It was good.
I got a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Curled up, with a little ribbon on it or whatever they put on top of it as well. Let's discuss some things that, again, what Evan also does is amazing with what he does on at Evan, M-I-Y-A, by the way, on Twitter, and online, all the stats and trends and analytics. Let's start with basketball. Paul asked you this question earlier. Matthew Meyer has still not made up his mind. He can make up his mind. He can end up playing somewhere else collegiately. He can go to the NBA and stay there or continue there. And who knows if that door might still be cracked open at Baylor. How much does he swing anybody who may get him, whether it's North Carolina we hear about or anyone else? How much does he swing the pendulum?
I think he's considered to be a really good transfer, probably top 15, top 20 consensus. My personal analytics have him as the number one best available transfer because I think he has been really underrated on the defensive end of the ball last year and this year in terms of his impact for Baylor's defense when he's on the floor. They're just so much better on a per possession basis defensively, not to mention his statistics that he accrues on the defensive end. And we as Baylor fans who watch him every game know his offensive potential. It was a little bit disappointing this year in terms of the actual efficiency that he had shooting from the field, but we know he's capable of it. And the underlying numbers suggest that he can do that again. So when you put that together, his offense and his really high-level defense, I think he's going to be an absolutely massive piece for any team that gets him if he ends up leaving Baylor.
You had Kendrick Davis, who's going to Memphis at number 2. Memphis needed somebody like that, didn't they? Because they greatly underachieved, and half of their good recruits don't show up anyway, and all the weird things that are going on there. But what do you think he can do for Memphis, kicking them up?
Memphis hasn't had a reliable point guard in a while. And especially given how tenacious they are on defense and how sporadic they have been on offense under Penny Hardaway, Kendrick Davis is going to be a game changer for them. He's been really, really good for SMU, and I think it's a little disappointing for him that he hasn't, gotten to play more prolific games over the last couple of years. So for him to be now with Memphis, I think that's a huge piece for them. Offensively, he's just incredible. He's going to be able to facilitate and score lots of leadership. So it's a big piece for them.
Evan, obviously Baylor's been very active with their transfers. Just what are your thoughts on them bringing in Caleb Lohner, also Jalen Bridges as well? What kind of impact, where do you see them fitting into the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, I really like Jalen Bridges especially. At my website, I rate all transfers with a star ranking kind of similar to what you'll see in high school, and he's one of the few 5-star transfers that I had available. So I think he was a little bit underappreciated this year at West Virginia. I think he's going to be a big piece for Baylor, especially with some of the pieces that they're losing to the draft and potentially to the transfer portal. So I think that piece especially is going to be good. And that Scott Drew, he chases the right pieces. He doesn't just grab anybody. And in today's age in the transfer portal, there's so little research, I think, that's really going into guys that coaches are pursuing. And that Baylor's taking the extra step in doing their due diligence. So I have a lot of confidence that those guys are going to be able to step in and be big pieces for them.
Do you feel like they fill in the shoes of a Matthew Meyer, a James Akinjo? Do you feel like they're at the same level they were prior to those guys' departures with who they brought on?
I do think it's probably a step down. James Akinjo and Meyer were both really, really good. As I said earlier, I think Meyer was underappreciated by a lot of people this year in terms of his impact on the floor, even if he wasn't the main scoring threat. But I do think those are two pieces that really do help cover a lot of those holes too. So it's going to be really interesting to see, especially with the new freshmen they have coming in, kind of what that chemistry looks like at the beginning of the season.
And of course, Sohan and Brown as well on their way out as well. Yeah.
How much can you yet with incoming freshmen? Can you put that into perspective yet with what you do with your analytics because of what Keontae George, the young guard from Kilgore College, how much he plays? How much can you do on that right now?
There's a good amount. I don't have a next year team rankings out yet, but something that I'm able to do is, along with the returning pieces that a team has and being able to project how good those players are, based on an incoming freshman's recruiting profile, just based on how they're ranked according to different services, you can generally get a good sense of roughly how good they're going to be and how much impact they're going to have. And so that also plays a big piece into my early preseason projections. I haven't run those numbers yet to kind of see which teams are at the top of the list, but usually if you have a freshman who's top 40, top 50, they're definitely going to be something that raises your floor and gives you a lot of potential. Some of these freshmen that Baylor coming in are definitely going to play a major part in kind of raising their level for next season.
Look, Langston Love, we don't really know anything about either, so that you can kind of almost consider him a true freshman, or I guess statistically maybe a JUCO transfer that you would look at as far as age and all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. When Langston Love got injured last year before the season started, I think that dropped Baylor. I think I had Baylor, 6th or 7th in the preseason, and his absence for the rest of the season dropped them a couple spots. So you just adding that back in is already going to make at least some sort of a tangible difference. Obviously, it's a little bit of a wild card because of the recovering from the injury. But, that could be a major piece that not a lot of people are really expecting this year.
All right. From Alex Brown, congrats, Evan. Sarah McCoy, congrats, Doctor. Scotty B, yep, congratulations, Evan. Here's one, Stephen Snook, who I mentioned. He does some pods. He's a huge college football fan out of Cincinnati. He's from in Ohio. Dr. Miyakawa, this metrics and information is fascinating. I mean, he didn't know who you were until like 5 or 6 months ago, and now a lot of people, and I want to get to that. Daniel, congrats, Evan, and others as well. Now, speaking of which, how many more people know who you are because of what you've done, and you started to get quotes in the national writers, and you put, Jeff Goodman among others. How much have you exploded nationally?
It's been really, really cool. It's definitely not something that I expected when I started my website a couple years ago. I just really started it as kind of an extension of what I was already doing in my free time, which was sort of messing around with sports data, while I'm getting a doctorate in statistics. And so the amount of engagement that I've gotten, especially from a lot of Baylor fans, has been really huge. And now a lot of publications are referencing my metrics, whether that's evaluating team rankings, or a lot of people are quoting me on where different transfers are ranked according to my rankings, because you can see literally every single transfer where they're ranked amongst the over 1,000 transfers that are available. So I see those rankings mentioned in publications all across the country. So it's been really, really cool.
So, I mean, most of the statistical sports thing kind of started with baseball and Bill James and those kind of things. And then, it fed into other things, the analytics that they use in football and basketball and all that. Would you do another sport? Are you have interest in doing other sports like this? I mean, baseballs might be done to death, but do you have interest in looking at it? Because different people have different looks on it, even statistically, numbers-wise, of what's really important and what factors in.
I'm always intrigued by other sports. In fact, before I started doing basketball analytics, I've always been a big fantasy football guy. Mm-hmm. And at some point, a couple of years ago, I built an algorithm for taking your teams from your fantasy league and then optimizing all the possible trades that you can make with another team and telling you which trades were most beneficial for you and another team. So I'm always thinking about ways to apply statistics in random ways to different sports. I've always been open to it.
We'll talk after. I'm on a 9-year streak of not winning one. So
I'll hook you up.
You think he can help you?
I'll take any help. I'm like Jerry Jones right now.
Yeah.
Whatever philosophy is going to help me, I'll try.
Even if there's risks?
Even if there's risks.
Even if a guy's injured when you draft him?
Yes.
Evan, what got you in? What made you interested in stats? What was it? Was it when you were younger, something you saw? How did that happen?
I've got to give credit to my parents who are here. They both got their master's degrees in statistics at Texas A&M. And they told me that I was reading numbers in the sports page in the newspaper when I was 2.
Wow.
So they really indoctrinated me from a young age. And so I think my upbringing really led me to have a love for combining math and stats with sports. So it's really been something I've always loved, partly because of my parents and the way they raised me.
Did you both, mom and dad, invite or make sure your parents knew about the master's degree program that you were getting when that time came?
I think they probably would have done a better job than I did of letting their family know.
I had to get that in on you one more
absolutely
time.
Had to.
Well, I mean, look, they were in Lufkin. I mean, that's not far from College Station, so it's not. It's easy. Look, I'm on your side, Evan. I almost didn't tell my parents to come. I thought it was just going to put a damper on my weekend.
Did it?
No.
All right, we have a lot of college football to get to as far as guests to check in on programs. We've just checked in on most everyone we could imagine, and we'll do a little bit more of that as well. So the rest of the day, are you here for the rest of the day? You're going to spend the night? What's next?
I'm here. Some of my family's leaving tomorrow. I'll be here through the end of Sunday, just kind of catching up with people and going to my church and all that good stuff, just kind of getting to hang out in Waco one more time before I move out to California in a couple weeks.
Is that where you're going, huh?
Yeah, Santa Barbara, California.
Santa Barbara.
Oh, Lord.
If you ever want to visit and do a show out there on the beach, just let me know.
Don't say that. We'll see you in July.
Exactly.
No, that's just probably among the most beautiful views and beautiful places of all the things that are beautiful in California. That doesn't get probably brought up enough.
Yeah, a couple years ago, we just went to lunch there one day.
We did. We went down to the coast.
Yeah,
We did. It's absolutely gorgeous. Thanks for your time, man. Thanks for all you do. Now, just because you're now kind of like you hit the lottery, you still come on with us, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, don't start like acting like you aren't able to come on with us.
No,
we'll hunt you down.
Sikkim 365 will always hold a special place in my heart, and you know that this was actually the first, I think, radio station or segment I ever did back in January of 2021, I think. So, you know, this has been a huge part of me, not only like growing, you know, as in terms of people knowing what I do, but just me personally growing and learning how to communicate and talk to people about sports. So it's been a great experience.
It's one thing, and then you get in front of a camera or on the radio or cell phone, whatever it might be. We had you on Zoom a few times as well. Congratulations. We're very proud. We feel like, you know, you're like one of our children.
I appreciate it.
Well, not for these two guys. They're not old. Well, maybe they are. Thanks for your time. Congratulations, man. Really, seriously. Dr. Miyakawa, what a great story. Got his doctorate today. Mom and dad, grandparents in the studio, father-in-law in the studio, and also back for the first time in probably about 2 years to check out what's going on in Waco with all the ups and downs of what's happening here with the construction. Coming up next, we'll get to a note about a